Hello folks, welcome to OTD, also known as On The Deck, where you can get all the sports you need in 10 minutes. My name is Adam Morduna. This is my mom, Gina.
He is a journalist.
She's the enthusiast.
Okay, well, I'm kind of enthusiastic about this topic because I have some opinions about this. As a sports fan,
right.
I have some opinions about this today.
Sure. Well, I've got my own opinions, and that's why we have our shows, because we do have our own opinions on whatever's going on within sports. And right now, this is an NFL topic that I think really has been around for a long time, really, that you could say. As long as the NFL's been around, the issue that we're bringing up right now has been around forever. And that's really just the topic and issue of fighting within the league and how it should be delegated or how it should be handled. The big question is, should there be fines? Should there just be ejections? Should there be suspensions? It seems like this year...
Or should there be nothing because it's a violent sport?
Or should there be nothing? Exactly. Right. And so because of the sport, it is such a violent and aggressive game. And like I said earlier, this has been going on in the league for a very long time because of what the sport requires. And so this year, it really seems like players are kind of losing it a little bit when it comes to keeping their cool.
You could say that.
Etc. Yeah. So... the last couple weeks, we have really seen some scrums or fights, punches thrown. There's been a lot going on here. So let's talk about some of the things that took place over this weekend, and then we'll kind of talk about some of the other incidents that have gone through. Jalen Ramsey and AJ Green, the Jags and the Bengals this weekend, and then you had the Saints and the Bucks. Mike Evans and Marshawn Lattimore as well. There was some instigation going on through a third party, really, but Mike Evans was the one that got the brunt of it all. What are your thoughts on how these two fights broke out and what happened here?
Well, I think we have to separate the two fights because one of those fights is something that happens, and I haven't ever played football. I've just been a fan of it my whole life. I've raised football players, my dad, my uncles, my son, my brother, But when you're out there shoving each other, especially when you're talking about receivers and cornerbacks, they're going to be putting hands on each other. We've seen this with Odell Beckham and Josh Norman. We've seen this with Josh Norman and Des Bryant. So that was the situation with AJ Green and Jalen Ramsey. They've been jawing all game. They've been doing this all game. That has been going on. And then Jalen gave AJ a shove. AJ, I either didn't see it coming or it caught him off balance. He actually goes to the ground. He got up and went straight for the chokehold. And not just the chokehold.
The ring your neck chokehold.
It was the chokehold, bring it to the ground chokehold.
Yeah, it was.
Then he gets him down and starts swinging on it.
Starts punching him, right.
And, Jalen gets up, so AJ gets him by the neck again, throws him down a second time. Now the refs and the whole team are in there.
Everybody's pushing,
But to me, that fight has to be separate from what happened between the Bucks and the Saints. And the reason is because with the Bucks and the Saints, you had someone who was a spectator, not playing in the game, who instigates a fight that then gets everybody else in trouble.
The third party out of this situation.
Which, think about this. Isn't there? I have cousins like this. I'm not going to name names, but who will instigate a fight. They said that about you. You'll let them
pointing fingers
and then they step out.
Loud,
you're fighting with somebody, and you two are the ones in the fight
over something that you weren't really involved with.
Correct. So I think we have to separate what happened, but now we got to kind of talk about punishment. So why don't you talk about what happened with the Bucks and the Saints? Because
Mike Evans is a receiver for the Buccaneers, really good receiver, all-pro receiver.
Big 12 guy.
He sees his quarterback getting into it with one of the defensive backs for the Saints, Marshawn Lattimore, and he comes out of left field, basically using a baseball reference, but just coming out of nowhere.
Coming Superman in there.
Straight heat-seeking missile and jacks Marshawn Lattimore in the back, and spears him in the back basically, and takes him to the ground. And then now everybody is on the Buccaneers side. There's a big scrum between the Saints and the Bucks on the Buccaneers sideline, and Mike Evans gets suspended a game for that. Now AJ Green gets ejected. Jalen Ramsey and AJ Green get ejected, but they were fighting each other on the field, and so the big question is, should those guys have gotten fined at all, considering AJ Green and Jalen Ramsey were fighting each other. Should they have been ejected? Should they just have been suspended? Should they have been able to finish the game but then get suspended? Because Mike Evans, he didn't get ejected, but he got suspended, so he was able to finish the game.
Right.
So it was one of those situations where the league kind of flip-flopped on each situation. Some people felt like Mike Evans should have got ejected and suspended right then and there.
Ejection, suspension, and a fine.
Exactly.
And here's why. And I want to take these. So we'll start back with the Saints and the Bucs.
Yeah.
Mike Evans, who's a Big 12 guy, and honestly, I'm kind of a fan. I'm not,
I like Mike Evans a lot. Yes.
But dude, you can't come running in from out of the scene, full head of steam. If you watch it, I'm not talking about slow. I'm talking about in real time.
Yes.
Marshawn's head snaps back. He goes all the way down to the ground. He had no idea it was coming.
Right.
He could have really been injured.
Yes.
So the fact that he and at the end of the day, Marshawn had already been assaulted once by Jameis Winston. I almost called him Jalen. Jameis Winston.
Yes.
So he'd already had somebody push him in the back of the head, and then had somebody blindside him. So at that point, I think Jameis Winston needs to be fined because he instigated and he assaulted a player when he's basically at that point a spectator.
Right.
Okay, that's first of all. Then Mike Evans should have been thrown out of the game.
Right.
And he absolutely deserves to be suspended.
Sure.
And he and Jameis both need to be fined.
Right.
Period.
Right.
Period.
Well, I agree with that. I think for me, the ruling has to be as soon as punches are thrown, closed fist punches where you're physically trying to hurt someone. Number one, that's just idiotic and dumb because you're punching somebody's helmet. You're
gotta break your hands,
especially if you're a receiver where you rely on your hands the most. You're not winning in that situation.
The helmet is 100-0.
Exactly.
Like you're not going to beat the helmet with your hand.
Punching somebody in general, you're guaranteed to break something, or you're going to jam. Or it's just you're not winning in that scenario. But number two, I feel like a push, a couple of shoves here and there, your teammates pull you back, the refs throw a flag or they just separate everyone. Hey, everyone walks away, no harm, no foul. It's a chippy situation between you and the other player. It is what it is. You move on. But when someone is blindsided like what Mike Evans did, when AJ Green comes down with the slam chokehold, and there are punches thrown, and it is no longer from a small scrum, push and shoving to full-on battling with each other. Everyone needs to be ejected and suspended for one game. I agree. You get thrown out and suspended.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. And for me, as I was listening to you talk about it, and I'm starting to go through my mind all the good Josh Norman battles and this and that, I feel like if you're in close contact, because linemen, your brother's a lineman,
of course,
you know, you're going to be close. And sometimes you got each other by the thing, and you just don't let go. You hold on too tight, or you're doing that. To me, if you're in close proximity, you're grabbing or you're shoving. That's a separation. If it goes too far, there's a penalty. But that shouldn't be ejection. That shouldn't be suspension.
That shouldn't be a normal football play. That's just how it goes.
But I agree 100%. Once you're throwing punches, that's got to go. You've got to be suspended. It can't just be, oh, here's a fine. You've got to get that out of the game.
Exactly.
Now, obviously, if the helmet comes off and you're using the helmet as a weapon or anything like that. But just even the fact that AJ Green, to me, felt like he was out of control.
He was out of control.
You know you're not going to hurt the man hitting the helmet.
Correct.
That's just rage. I've had enough. Whatever else was going on.
Exactly.
Now I'm swinging. I chokehold you twice. I swing on you 2 or 3 times. That's somebody who has lost control of himself in the course of the game. You need a timeout. And now you don't get to play the next game. That's what needs to happen.
Exactly. And we've seen it time and time again between receivers and defensive backs. You have all these close proximity situations throughout the game where guys get really testy and they lose their focus and now they've had enough and so they want to start swinging. And for me, if you want to keep the league as clean and as family friendly and you want to have good competition, but this is not WWE or UFC or whatever the case may be, you can't allow players to throw punches and not have them be at least the bare minimum ejected, but I think it deserves a suspension. You can't throw punches in the NFL. That's just not acceptable, especially with how hard the game is right now, how much
assault.
With the concussions and there's so many injuries. There are so many injuries right now. you just can't have that.
Well,
and so it's just
we've
tough.
talked about this many times before. I know we're wrapping up, but the NFL has an image issue. From the domestic abuse to now we've had the protests over the violent killing of unarmed people of color. To now you had Donald Trump weighing in. And then the concussion issues.
Correct.
The CTE thing, and the movie came out. The NFL has an image problem. They've been really trying to clean it up. They're doing the NFL play. They got kids in the commercials. They've got their players out here doing commercials. You've got kids in the stands, and you should have kids in the stands.
Correct.
So how does a little kid process that, hey, when AJ Green is pounding someone on the ground, that doesn't actually hurt them?
Right.
That just looks like a violent act to the kid.
Right. Well, and
that's got to go.
And it wasn't just this week. In the last couple weeks, we saw Kiko Alonso lay a hard hit on Joe Flacco, and then Kiko Alonso and John Harbaugh are yelling at each other, and the Ravens players are coming in defending their teammates, and so you got this big scrum. Dominican Sue's with the chokehold on somebody. Marshawn Lynch the couple weeks before that, during the Chiefs game on Thursday night, came out and started throwing people around off the sideline, and it's just been kind of this craziness right now this year. And we know it's a physical sport. We understand that what you're required to do and what you're asked of.
But it's also this sport. It's mental. You've got to keep your head strong.
And it's just,
you know who to be the most disciplined people on the field? Your O-linemen, because they're fighting with somebody play after play, and you don't see them swinging.
Right.
You just bounce people off. You lay on the ground. You get up and you do it again.
Right.
You got to keep your head. And the NFL has got to come down hard on this. And you got to be consistent. You can't, this guy suspended, this guy isn't.
Right.
No.
It's got to be.
Suspended, fine, hit that timeout. And Jameis Winston needs to come up out of his pocket.
Yeah, he needs to pay that fine for the whole everybody.
You need to pay Mike Evans fine.
Right. Well, folks, we want to say we appreciate your time. There's a lot more NFL football to be played, and we're going to be watching, and we're excited. We appreciate your time, folks, and we'll see you again.